In this segment, I will answer the question, what types of workforce development programs might be funded by grants? The answer is that it depends. It depends on the type of grantmaker that you're looking at. When we're looking at private foundations, the type of workforce development program is not as important as whether or not the grantmaker themselves is interested in workforce development. That is the first hurdle that you want to clear. The way that you understand if the grantmaker is interested is by looking at the research that we've provided, or looking at the funder's information if you find something on your own on a website, and understand what is their stated mission, what is their goal with their grant funding. If they have workforce development or something related, then you can get into the nitty-gritty with that grantmaker on the phone or an email prior to applying about, is the type of workforce development you're looking at applicable? Now, if we switch gears and we think about government funding. When we think about government funding, first let's tackle federal. If we're thinking about workforce development, what we want to consider for the type of work that you do is what is happening in the Office of Vocational and Adult Education. That's through the Department of Education. We want to see if they have any workforce development programs currently open or if there's any forecasted for the months or the year ahead. If we're thinking about our state funding, we want to consider what is the process by which our state awards workforce development funding or economic development funding broadly. As an example, in New York State, the state went through a process where they've consolidated all economic development funding into one process. That process, the consolidated funding application, opens once a year. It opens in May, give or take, and then is open for approximately 60 days. That is the one time each year where many of the agencies are releasing their requests for funding and accepting applications. It's a very narrow focus. They give very clear guidelines. Now that's just one example. That's just the way that New York is currently handling it. Each state has a different process. The way in which they accept applications, the timelines for their applications all vary significantly. Some have significant matching requirements, others have none. So the homework is to figure out what is happening in your state. When and how are they willing to discuss workforce development grants with you? Then you'll understand what's the process by which you can have the conversation about the nuts and bolts of the workforce development program you're interested in implementing. So the answer is it does depend. It depends on the type of grantmaker that you're considering, whether it's foundation, state, or federal funding. But there are certainly grantmakers, numerous grantmakers at all levels interested in funding workforce development programs. The key is to find the grantmaker interested in funding workforce development in your geographic state or region and in a way that you are proposing to implement that workforce development.